Good morning, Bitcoiners. I hope you're doing well. I'm loving my life. Things are going great. Who could complain on a day like today? Who could complain? Patience, everyone. I've just got to check and see if Rumble is working because sometimes when I, pardon me, sometimes when I hook it up at or around 8 a.m., it fails to click and engage. So I want to make sure we're live. I want to make sure we're live. What does it say? What does it say? Are we live? Are we live on Rumble? We're live. We're live. Thank you, Rumble. We figured it out. We got 22 people watching already. Tied with YouTube. Amazing. You're both at 22. Funny. There you go. Let me say good morning to y'all. Matt, you're first up. Good morning, Nolan, and the rest of Team Bitcoin, also known as Team Human. Robert, good morning. The Bitcoin keeps on winning. Indeed. Good morning. Ready for my daily orange pill. Awesome, Hassan. Welcome, my friend. Joseph. Okay, team. As my grandpa would say, shit is about to hit the fan. I'm loving it. Let's go. Isn't it fun? Don't we live in fun times? You know the Chinese saying, may you live in interesting times. Geez. Very interesting. Tommy. What's up, my man? Good morning, team. We are the meme that will change the world. That is true. That is exactly it. Assalamu alaikum, Muslim Bitcoiner. Seems like governments are now on self-custody ban. Banks seem bipolar about it. Buying non-KYC in the future like BISC, RoboSats will maybe threaten unless you got your own node. Yeah, they're hunting us. It's what I said would happen last year. Definitely having some hunting stuff against us. We're gonna live. We're gonna make it. This sucker's coming down, guys. This fiat scam. So state capacity is funny. That's what we're going to talk about today. Our enemies are unimpressive losers who are mostly funny. I don't know how to actually I get it. Democracy, civil war, it's all up in the air. But never been so divided. Yeah, but our enemies are not worthy enemies. They're scammers. So we'll see what happens. But today we're going to talk all about their utter failures. So, and how funny they are, just how funny it all is, because again, we've been talking about it for a long time. Moscow time, everything, the idea that humor has just merged with the fiat reality where they're indistinguishable. They're the same thing. Humor, things you laugh at, absolutely absurd things, are now indistinguishable from fiat news. They're the same thing. We're going to talk about it. It's very funny. It's very funny. But first, let's just acknowledge that we have a sunrise that happened on the East Coast of North America. The sun is up. Sunrise Tech operating as expected. At the same time, and no less importantly, our money tech is working just fine. Bitcoin's running. So, everything's fine in the world, right? We got a sun and we got Bitcoin. So let's just talk about the news, right? There's nothing else to do. This is another one of those old cups of coffee. I made this like an hour ago and there was plenty left. It's a little bit like the news today. It's kind of old. It's kind of stale. It's kind of yesterday's news. It's been like that for a little while anyway. Well, not yesterday, but today in the past few days, it's been kind of like that. So today, there is no end, if you will, to Moscow time. It just sort of will flow right to the end because there's only Moscow time now. It's only Moscow time. There is no other news but Moscow time. Now, what I want to do is talk about something called the contrast principle. It was a little bit about what we were talking about yesterday. The contrast principle being sometimes you can only really define something and understand it when you see contrast, right? This whole show, everything we do here, right, in the breakup, it is literally to contrast against fiat node propagation, how fiat reaches some form of consensus, how it propagates forward in the world. And we contrast that with Bitcoin. It is literally about contrasting the commercial relationships that are made possible by one economic system versus another. And of course, that's what we do. We contrast the economic relationships built in fiat with the economic relationships built in Bitcoin. That is literally what this show is about, right? That's why we call it the breakup. You're having to break up with relationships that are economically based on a system that is dying. So today it's all about the failure of the fiat nodes to propagate and how funny it is. How funny it is. So one of the neat things, and this is all Moscow time stuff, right? So first up, we're going to start with a Rolling Stone, who we've learned from various sources, like Mike Ben Cyber, that the Rolling Stone is another one of these Operation Mockingbird media assets, vital for the propagation of the fiat industrial complex, because of course fiat is word-based money, and if you don't propagate the words that propagate the money, well then it's going to die. So Rolling Stone a long time ago became one of these things. So here's a headline from Rolling Stone from yesterday. MAGA convention to Nikki Haley. Fuck her. Steve Bannon and Profane America Fest attendees signaled that they see the former South Carolina governor as Trump's most serious primary challenger. So they're making it sound like Trump's worried about Nikki Haley. But what actually happened at the thing, it wasn't fuck her to Nikki Haley. According to Charlie Kirk, it's a lie. The crowd chanted Tucker. They wanted Tucker to be the vice president because they were worried that Trump was going to name her vice president, if you remember all of that stuff, right? But here's a perfect example. So that's one thing Rolling Stone did. But here's a perfect example of the contrast principle at work. And I'm going to do that with a bunch of these media organizations today because for some simulation wink reason, all the media companies are offering us perfect contrast in headlines today. So this is a Rolling Stone headline from last week, December 6th, 2023, or, basically last week, I guess 2 weeks ago now. Contrasted with a Rolling Stone headline from 2 days ago. All right. So 2 weeks ago, it was called Rabbit Hole. Far right resurrects Jeffrey Epstein conspiracy theories. War in the Middle East and congressional ethics probe have led conservatives to invoke the long dead sex offender in political attacks. Okay. So that was last week, okay, or 2 weeks ago. That was it. What's their headline today? Jeffrey Epstein co-conspirators, victims, names to be made public January 1st. The judge ordered documents which are tied to a settled lawsuit Virginia Giuffre brought against Ghislaine Maxwell to be unsealed in full. So, a little bit of contrast there, but we can do better. Here's NBC News, what I like to call NPC News, not to be confused with NPR News, which is also called NPC News. Okay, so I understand why you'd get them confused. NPR is actually NPC and NBC is actually NPC. So it's just a little quirk of the fiat industrial complex. Here's what we got from NBC News. This was actually, let me do the first one. This was actually from a few years ago. Do you remember when they were trying to do the Supreme Court confirmations, and then there was the abortion one, right? Remember all that? And the Supreme Court, and then there was people outside their door, and then there was people protesting at the Supreme Court justice's house. So NPC News wrote the following: free speech or federal crime. Protesters are still marching outside conservative Supreme Court justices' homes. Some senators want to use a federal law to charge those who continue to picket, even though it would be on shaky constitutional grounds. That's what NPC News says. Now, this is from yesterday. Okay, so that was from when it's just stupid people. Stupid judges, right? Stupid judges don't deserve protection, okay? Because it could be free speech. Who knows? Who knows, right? According to NPC News. But this is from yesterday. Colorado Supreme Court justices face a flood of threats after disqualifying Trump from the ballot. The latest round of threats fits a familiar pattern. Is the pattern that people are going to judges' houses to complain about them? No. The pattern is that Trump faces legal setback and officials face threats. Thank you, Lord of the Simulation, for giving us an unending stream of ridiculous contrast. NPC News also took the time to warn us all. So in case you didn't know, this is a warning to everyone, okay? This is a warning to everyone. Okay, this is from NPC News as well, right? This is from last week. As vehicles get bigger and heavier, they also get deadlier. Tesla's new Cybertruck, a 6,800-pound electric car, could be lethal to pedestrians and occupants of lighter vehicles in the case of an accident. Experts say. So experts are letting you know that if you get hit by a car, you might die. Did you know that? Good thing the experts are here. Good thing NPC News has experts around, right? Good thing. Now we've got another contrast here, right? So speaking of Elon Musk, right? So here's last week when Alex Jones got back on X. Here's what Washington Post had to say. Elon Musk restores account of conspiracy theorist Alex Jones on X. The move is likely to hasten the flight of advertisers from the site over anti-Semitism and hateful content. Right? What did the Washington Post say 4 years ago about Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi? Remember him? Remember al-Baghdadi, the head of ISIS? All right, well, you know, Alex Jones is back on conspiracy theorists. Elon Musk, anti-Semitism, right? Here's the obituary from the Washington Post of Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi, austere religious scholar at helm of Islamic State, dies at 48. Thank you again, Washington Post. I appreciate it. I appreciate all you do to help us learn about what a scam Fiat is. If it wasn't for you, I'm grateful for the Washington Post, NPC News, NPR, NPC News, and the Rolling Stone magazine at this time of year, right? If we didn't have these folks, we wouldn't know what to do, right? Oh, Tommy says, car accidents might be lethal. I'm never leaving my house again. It's true, Tommy. If you get hit by a car, and if the car's heavier, it's even more dangerous, okay? It's even more dangerous. It's in the news, guys. I saw it in the news. It's true. I saw it in the news. You could die if you get hit by a car. We got more contrast. This is funny because it's on the same day. Okay. This is funny because it's on the same day. All right. It's just funny. I don't know what to say besides it's funny. Okay. So we got two folks. We got Barron's Online. We got Washington Post. And then the kicker will come from Washington Post, right? So the contrast will come from Washington Post. Ready? So remember, just put the Barron's one into the Washington Post thing because the contrast will happen with the Washington Post. All right. Are you guys ready for this? It's the holidays. I'm trying to help you here. Okay. We got to be careful because it turns out, according to Barron's and Washington Post, a fast moving COVID strain, everyone, a fast moving COVID strain has emerged for the holidays. We heard about it today. It's fast moving. It's COVID with a bonus of speed. Speed COVID, fast COVID, bonus COVID, right? Washington Post writes, the World Health Organization has declared coronavirus subvariant JN.1 a variant of interest due to its rapidly increasing speed. It's so fast. It's the fastest COVID ever. COVID in time for 2024. Fastest COVID ever. At the same time, we found out yesterday that American scientists, this is a headline from the Washington Post, American scientists misled the Pentagon on research at the Wuhan Institute of Virology. Oh, they just did it. You know, it's just a little bit of misleading. It's just a little bit of misleading. It's okay, right? It's scientists, but they're so honest. Come on, scientists. Once you're so logical and sciencey, you don't lie anymore. Everyone knows that. Once your operating system is the scientific method, you can't lie. It's not possible, right? You have a degree from college. Oh, but it's not exactly like that. It turns out that the people who go to college and get those degrees might be doing a little bit of lying. It turns out that the Harvard president, Claudine Gay, right? President Gay, according to the Harvard Crimson, will submit a few corrections, right? They're saying as of yesterday, she's going to submit 3 corrections to her PhD amid mounting allegations of plagiarism. I didn't know that. But it's not that simple. It's not that simple. It turns out she's been lying even more, and it turns out that there's even more plagiarism stuff. Wow. I didn't know. I thought once you got a PhD, I thought once you got that really, awesome Fiat operating system in your brain, right? Like you have a piece of paper. The paper says you're a doctor. You can't lie after that. You're awesome, right? Well, I don't know. Things are changing, I guess. Who knows? Here's more contrast. Okay, and again, I it's not me who's making this happen on the same day. I'm just waiting on the jokes. Okay, I'm not actually out here making any jokes. There's no jokes being made. This is just reality. Okay, so on the same day, this happened on the same day. If you want contrast, I don't know if it's Moscow time. I don't know what to even think about it, but it's funny. Okay, it's really funny. The Fiat propagation nodes did this on the same day. Imagine your node did something like this. Watch this. Okay, so the California lieutenant governor, some Greek name that it's got too many syllables, I can't pronounce it. She's lieutenant governor though, right? And so she calls on the California Secretary of State to explore every legal option to remove former President Donald Trump from California's ballot. She goes on to say that the Constitution is clear that anyone who's 40 years old and not an insurrectionist can't be president. Well, she almost got it right. Right, it was actually 35, right? So it's 5 years. Who cares, right? It's just a bit of law, like it doesn't matter, right? And so the insurrectionist part two, she said it's clear. She said it's clear, right? So that's what she said. So she goes, look for a way that he's not on the ballot in California, right? On the same day in California, Governor Newsom released the following statement. Governor Newsom so you can't vote for who you want in California. Okay, can't do that. At the same time, California, on the same day, again, it's not me doing this, guys. It's just the simulation or whatever, but this is what's going on in the Fiat world, okay? You can't vote for who you want, right? Let's explore every legal option to remove Donald Trump from the ballot, okay? On the same day in California, Governor Newsom's statement on concealed carry ruling. Defying common sense, this ruling outrageously calls California's data-backed gun safety efforts repugnant. What is repugnant is this ruling, which greenlights the proliferation of guns in our hospitals, libraries, and children's playgrounds. Of course, that's where everyone's bringing their guns, don't you know? Which should be safe for all. California will keep fighting to defend our laws and to enshrine a right to safety in the Constitution. The right to safety, guys. It's going to be the right to safety. You're not going to get a gun. The lives of our kids. It's our kids. They depend on it, right? So no guns because of our kids. No guns. No guns. They did this on the same day. They did it on the same day. I don't make it up, guys. I don't make it up. Meanwhile, CNN is letting us know what America's shoplifting panic is really about. Okay, this is from CNN. What America's shoplifting panic is really about, right? According to them, it's the self-checkout things. Right? It's too much self-checkout. If you read the article in CNN, it's too much self-checkout. That's why they're getting rid of the self-checkout. It's the self-checkout's fault. It's like Kia and Hyundai being liable for all the car thefts. Of course it's their fault. They made their cars too easy to steal, guys, right? We've been talking about that for a while, right? NPC News, the New York Times, they let us all know that, right? So there you go. And now one of the best contrasts that I have, that I was able to find, comes from Kamala. Kamala. We love her. What would we do without Kamala? Kamala is the greatest Fiat vice president ever. If I had my way, she would be president. I mean, it's hard to imagine someone who's better than Biden, but I think she is. I think the alcoholism or whatever's going on makes her that much funnier than Biden. And Biden's funny. If you saw Biden yesterday, right, he gave a speech on why he's got to make sure Trump can't run, and he whispered, and then he got lost on stage. It was actually pretty funny, right, if you watch it. And, I don't always like laughing at him because it is elder abuse, and it's not, he literally, someone had to come out of the wings behind the stage to show him where to go. After he was like trying to put a sentence together about kicking Trump off the ballot. He can't run, he can't take power. He did the whole thing, right? He even admitted that he's been working with the Department of Justice to keep him off the ballot, like things that normally would, under other circumstances, right, would be thought of as like absolutely fascist, right? But with the fake news that we have, it's fine. Don't worry about it, right? But it's not even as funny as what Kamala Harris did, right? So Kamala Harris goes on the what's that fucking guy's name? The one who's like really white, pasty skin, and he was doing the Cassidy Hutchinson interview, trying to like pump up her personality. Lawrence O'Donnell, that's his name. MSNPC guy. So Kamala goes on to that show to talk about the Colorado Supreme Court decision, right? So she's there, and what was her conclusion, right? So she was going on and on about a lot of stuff. A little drunk, it looked like, right? And I can't diagnose alcoholism from abroad, so it could be any drug, but she's not coherent, right? So she goes, "This is she's setting it all up, right?" So and I agree with her about this. Okay, I do agree. A lot of things to agree with what she says. She goes, "This is the most election of our lifetime. It is the most election. It's the most election of our lifetime by far, right? I think the next election might be the most or more of our lifetime, but this one is the mostest for now." So she said it was the most. And then so it's the most election of our lifetime. It is. And what she really wants, despite all of this stuff going on, okay, what she's really isolated the freedoms that her side is losing, because it's all about who's taking whose freedoms, right? So she says the freedom to just be, right? So the freedom to just be, right? Wow, this is deep stuff, right? Really great, right? I feel like they should put this on one of these statues soon, right? The freedom, the most election of our lifetime, the most election, right? More election than other elections. It's the most election. Okay, it's the most election. It's by far the most election. And you get the freedom to just be, right, from the most election. So one side is fighting for the freedom to just be in the most election. Okay, makes sense. It makes a lot of sense. Now let's contrast that with Trump's wordsmithing, right? So at the same time, Trump had some stuff to say about what's going on, right? He didn't go with "it's the most election" and the freedom to just be, right? He went with something different. This is what he said. "Crooked Joe Biden is the insurrectionist because he let millions of unknown people come recklessly and unchecked through our insane open border, let a war begin in the Middle East and Ukraine, weaponized our DOJ and FBI, surrender in Afghanistan when we could have left with dignity and strength, the most embarrassing event in the history of our country, and is destroying America with the Green New scam." Yeah. I love when they run like the mental checks on Trump, you know what I mean, versus these two. I bet Kamala, what is she, 50 something, 60, right? There's no way she would have a higher IQ than Trump at his age, almost 80. There's no way. There's just no way, right? So there you go. Now we get a little more contrast, right? And I think this contrast has absolutely destroyed the other Republican candidates from this week, right? So what happened this week to DeSantis and Haley, I don't think will be forgotten. And I think it's the perfect contrast to isolate what the uniparty really is, okay? And there's three things I got here. So Nikki Haley gives one of these like resting bitch face speeches yesterday in New Hampshire, I think. And she had this whole line that October 7th was Putin's birthday, and that somehow that connects the two wars. Okay. So Vivek says here, look at who are up. Look at who our enemies are and how unimpressive they are. Okay. It's very important to understand this part, right? Trump versus Kamala and Joe in rhetoric and manipulation of the English language, the very thing that the Fiat nodes are trying to propagate. Trump's better, right? But now Nikki Haley in the Uniparty, right, talking about some shit about war or like why we got to fight wars, and she's trying to make a point about why we need to fight, in this case in Ukraine. Okay, like she's trying to make a point about how Putin is doing too well and he had a nice birthday because the world lost attention on Ukraine and Russia after October 7th. But let's That's the negative part of what happened in Israel. That's the negative part. Okay. So contrast. Look at Vivek here. Right. Nikki Haley is now psychotically claiming that Putin's birthday is on October 7th and that's somehow related to Hamas attack on Israel. You can see the dollar signs flashing in her eyes. She needs to publish her tax returns and clients of her defense contractor now. Roll that log over. And then what does DeSantis do, right? DeSantis goes on the fake news, right? Oh, no, sorry, he's on Newsmax, right? And they ask him, will you leave the Colorado ballot if Trump isn't allowed on? And of course he says, no, it's fine. Don't worry about it. Democracy, right? So Tim Pool writes, and just like that, Ron DeSantis has disqualified himself. Anyone who believes they should win by cheating doesn't deserve to be anywhere near power. So there you go. Unfortunately for him, he fucked up. And one of the funnier things that happened yesterday, so Tim Dillon, the comedian who spoke at Bitcoin 2021 as one of our comedians, remember that ad he did for like crypto or something? It was like one of the like a fake trailer for a movie. It was so funny, right? Just so funny. Tim Dillon's hilarious. So he goes on Joe Rogan and smashes Nikki Haley and Chris Christie. This is what he says. I don't know what Chris Christie's up there talking about, Ozempic or whatever, but he's not getting $1. No one's giving him anything. He's just there to ruin things. He's there to kill that Vivek Ramaswamy. He's there to destroy other people. He's not there to succeed, and he knows it. And Nikki Haley now is having the big meetings. She's having the big closed-door meetings when they take you up to the Bohemian Grove. Nobody knew who that bitch was until she got on stage and started saying, hey, I would love to go to war. And then all of a sudden, all the money started flowing. When the comedians start really getting active, you got points, right? Because this is all about humor. Literally, we can laugh our way to victory. If people like Tim Dillon don't shut up and keep fighting like this, there's no way we can lose. There's just no way, right? But things are getting funnier with the contrast. We got more contrast. We got more, right? So now people are doing some investigating into the Trump situation in hold on, let me get this. We got some info from, there's one thing. Oh yeah, now I know where it is. Yes. Now I got it. So we got some contrast in more of what happened with Trump yesterday, right? Or 2 days ago. And this comes from Bad Kitty Kanakoa the Great, shared it. And it turns out, so this is stuff we're just tracking. I don't know what this means, but it's interesting anyway. So crew, the folks that got Trump pulled from the Colorado election ticket once shared the same address as Media Matters. So Media Matters, again, the group getting sued by Texas, the group getting sued by Missouri, the group getting sued by Elon Musk, right? This is the one that ran the fake scam trying to say that Elon Musk had, crazy ads on his site. That was the one where they manipulated the data. They did the same thing to Rumble, right? So that's Media Matters. So they shared the same address. The people who worked on the Trump thing share the same address as Media Matters. Media Matters is a Soros Democracy Alliance aligned partner. And look, there's Noah Bookbinder sharing that same address as Media Matters. I don't know who Noah Bookbinder is, but it's a funny name. This stuff always seems to disappear from my searches, so I recreated it, right? So he's got the information here. The lawfare group Crew that filed multiple lawsuits against Trump since 2017, including removing Trump from the ballot in Colorado, is listed as tax-exempt, nonpartisan. How many lawsuits have they brought against Democrats? In-kind donor, right? So there you go. Probably a scam organization. Now, one of the better ways to see this contrast happened also yesterday, and that was Nayib Bukele's tweet, which we mentioned yesterday, right? America can't lecture people about democracy. Well, Tucker Carlson did a quick show, 4 minutes last night, and he quoted Bukele and showed his tweet there. And this is what the monologue looked like. Whatever else January 6th was, this is Tucker Carlson's words, and he's quoting Nayib Bukele in it. Whatever else January 6th was, and in some ways, we still don't know exactly what it was not a Trump-led insurrection. The crowd had no guns. They had no plan to overthrow the government. Nothing like that has ever emerged. And above all, Trump was not leading it. He was miles away at the White House at the time, where he issued a public statement calling for calm and nonviolence. So why were the people on television telling us that Trump led an insurrection. This was, of course, a lie, but it was also a very obvious lie. So clearly, we were watching the rollout of a talking point, words crafted for a specific purpose. But what was that purpose? We got an answer to that question yesterday when the Colorado Supreme Court ruled that because he led an insurrection, Donald Trump's name cannot appear on the state's ballot next fall. The 4 liberal judges who concluded this cited as their justification Article 3 of the 14th Amendment, which was written in 1868 to keep former Confederate officials from holding office. That was the sum total of their reasoning, despite the fact that Trump has never been convicted by any court of insurrection. And although the 14th Amendment specifically does not apply to the presidency, Donald Trump has never been convicted by any court of insurrection. And although the 14th Amendment specifically does not apply to the president, I read that again, because he's in insurrections. I turned pages. So here's the important part. This seemed like lunacy because it was lunacy. 3,000 miles away in El Salvador, there was no question about what was happening. The United States has lost the ability to lecture any other country about, quote, democracy, wrote Salvadorian President Nayib Bukele. And yet, in this country, no one on the left dared say that. Instead, Donald Trump's enemies celebrated. The Atlantic magazine expressed gratitude that unelected judges had, quote, rescued the country from the desires of voters because actually that's democracy. So there you go. And then there's Jenna Griswold. That's the Colorado Secretary of State. You may not have seen her before, but you will instantly recognize the category she represents. Unhappy 39-year-old liberal woman with Ivy League degrees and a deep streak of authoritarian impulses, right? So there you go. And then they give her quote again, right? So there you go. Quite funny, quite funny. Let me get the next one. And of course, with this contrast, Elon Musk is also predicting that it's going to have the opposite effect, right? It's going to create more goodwill towards Trump again, right? So they're just pushing his poll numbers way up. And now you also get, and this is something I take personal satisfaction in, right? Now, I wasn't joking a year ago. I wasn't joking. As a Bitcoiner, I love the idea of Fetterman 2024. I just do, right? I mean, it's funny, right? Brain damage and all. But it looks like because his brain capacity is coming back, he's sort of making. Now I get it, he's in the crypto bill. I'm not really a total fan, right? Obviously, but the contrast is perfect, right? Having this guy around. But now it turns out they're turning on him, right? So this is what we know. Mr. Fetterman is shedding the progressive label at the same time his health has markedly improved. So as his brain power comes back, he's becoming less like a libtard. Right? That's what they're saying. At the same time, his health has markedly improved after his 2022 stroke and his 6-week stay this year at Walter Reed National Military Medical Center for clinical depression. He still suffers from some auditory processing problems that are the side effect of the stroke, but his speech is notably improved even from a few months ago, and he's emerged ready for action. And so, there are people out there who are saying, right, this is Annie Carney saying, what I have found out over the last couple of years is that the right and now the left are hoping that I die, Fetterman said in an interview. There are ones that are rooting for another blood clot. They have both now been wishing that I die, right? So he's saying that left-wing and right-wing people are wishing he dies. Stephen Miller makes the point the political right were the ones concerned about and questioning his health. The left dragged him into office in spite of his rehab, chained him to his office wall, and told him to vote just how they wanted him to, right? So that's been, sort of going on for a while. What else do I got here? And then finally, this is, I think where things are headed, right? This is my last one of what I don't know if Moscow time just didn't end today. It's just all Moscow time. It's only Moscow time. That's all we got. And this is from Chicago. All right. So they were doing a, sort of situation, talking about crime in Chicago, talking about the mayor, talking about what's going on, how it hasn't gotten better. And this Democrat said, she proudly said she voted for Brandon Johnson, the current mayor of Chicago. And someone at the table asked her about crime, and she actually said the following. Well, you might get robbed, but you won't be targeted. And Cernovich, Jesse Kelly, who relayed the story, said, people give Cernovich crap for saying these people want to live this way, but they do. They really do. And in some ways, that's an important lesson for us Bitcoiners. Some of these shit, fiat riddled brains really do want to live like that, right? And we can't stop them. If they want Joe Biden, if they want all this stuff, I think they're going to get it, in the sense that they're going to get all tied up with CBDCs and UBI and political money. And I still think there's going to be a rump of libtards and left-wing politics that will just exist until they all die off, right? We're actually forking humanity here between Bitcoiners and fiat people. Like that is the actual inflection point. And you're going to see it in quality of life. You're going to see it in health. You're going to see it in diet. You're going to see it in all kinds of friendship. I've been seeing Cernovich has been making all these points about how men today watching too much sports, not really doing enough socializing, and not really going to their weekly Masons or Shriners or men's clubs and things like that. And so one of the things that Bitcoiners have that's very different than the rest of this world is this in-person community and digital community, where I don't see a lot of people every day. I have my family and all that stuff. But I'm not in some situation where I've got to like ask my wife if I can go out. Like I'm completely free. I can do what I feel like, as long as I, watch my kids and don't leave them with strangers or anything like that. But I mostly get my social connections digitally these days, right? I get them from the Bitcoin community. I get them from all of you guys, right? I love coming here every morning. I get every psychological feeling of being with a coffee group in the morning from all of you and all of us together than I would if I did it in real life. It feels the same. In the early days of Bitcoin, I did this a lot. I went to physical coffee shops and, did Bitcoin blah, blah, blah all morning, every morning. And everyone who would get caught up in it just became Bitcoiners that way. And it was a lot of fun, right? We talked politics and, mostly the morning spaces I went to before I ran this show would turn in, and before I had kids. So the years I had kids, I was just kids in the morning, and then I would go into my office in New York at around 10. I would take the kids from 6, 7 until 9 something, let my wife sleep in, and then I would go. Some days I didn't even go into the city every day. And by the city, if you didn't know that, if you live in Brooklyn or Queens or anything like that, you call Manhattan the city. Brooklyn is the 4th largest city in the United States. It would be the largest city in Canada. And if you separated it from New York City, and you still call going to Manhattan going to the city. Are you going to the city? Right? That's a weird New York thing. So, and I lived like right in sort of downtown Brooklyn. It was very easy for me to get. It was 15 minutes to get to Midtown in my office, which is at Rockefeller Center or across the street from Rockefeller. And so I would go, 3 or 4 days a week. I wouldn't go in every day. But the years before that, in the early Bitcoin days, I was always at a coffee shop, either in, New York, or I lived in France for a little while at that time. And I lived mostly in Toronto, or I'd be traveling anywhere else around the world. And, I was staying in for a month in this city and a month in that city before we had kids, in the early Bitcoin days. And so, I would make these little coffee gangs, and before you knew it, everyone was into Bitcoin. I would find liberal people at these normal coffee shops, and within, a couple of days, I had a gaggle of Trump supporting Bitcoiners, right? So I figured, we should scale this into a digital thing and use contrast, because contrast is always what we want. It's easy to understand. It's the most persuasive thing, right? And just watching these fiat nodes and how they propagate the system and how utterly and spectacularly they've failed. Entropy is set into the system and it's dead. It doesn't work. This is the best they have. The best plans they have is to get people angry and gaslight them so they do stupid shit, so you can go back to what they said with the gun thing. We're going to keep the kids safe. That's the whole plan. There's nothing else to it. It's the whole plan. Democracy fortification, take your guns, and propagate the brainwashing around the world, because the money is the brainwashing. They're the same thing, right? They're the same thing. In fiat, it is words, and the words are used to brainwash. So that's how the nodes operate. That's how they function. It's all about broadcast technology. It's all about that stuff. So no, stop. Child came in. Out. Not yet. Sorry about that, guys. She was in her like pajamas, so it would have been crazy if I'd have been in trouble for kids stuff. So whatever. Anyway, all right, that's all I got today, guys. Let me go on Rumble and see what's up. Let me go on Rumble and see what's up. See what the comments say on Rumble. Well, live chat. Come on, live chat. Where are you? That freedom. Okay. Oh, here we go. Good morning, ZimKD. The COVID vaccines are biosensor nanotechnology. Good morning. Good morning, Sluggo. Buy Bitcoin, gold, and silver, according to JN240750. Love it. Ukraine is a massive Democrat / Marxist money laundering machine. Don't I know it? Don't I know it? It is a tragedy what happened. It's a tragedy. An absolute tragedy. My butt's been wiped. Elder abuse since 1990. Can still talk? Not that well. Not that well. Not that well. All right. According to Thomas, the only thing I miss when traveling is my coffee with Nolan. To see, it is a community, guys. We love it. Community is good. We need community, yeah. Everyone, men, women. I only know it from the men's point of view, but we need it. That freedom to just be ridiculous line reminds me of the character from James Taggart from Ayn Rand's Atlas Shrugged. He too just wanted to be or exist without any real value behind him. Yeah, it's true. That's a good analogy, good comparison. Ridicule is important, Glenn, and we're winning. Knox Bill says Chicago sold their street meter revenue to Abu Dhabi. What a shithole. What a shithole. RFK is the only one whose motives I trust. He has a vendetta and a death wish. I think so. Yeah, I think so, Robert Schmidt. That sounds accurate. But he is a shit lib. You got to remember that. He can shit lib with the best of them. But I love the guy. If he would be president, I'd be very happy. Right? Again, it's one of the main things that makes this contrast work, because previously Trump dominated the contrast so much that it really became a contrast still between Republicans and Democrats. He broke the mold inside Republicans' minds. He did not break it inside of everyone's mind. But now having more people willing to fight and make this contrast, like RFK, like Vivek, like Elon Musk, like we hope Bezos next year, you actually recalibrate this contrast so that you can't actually use Trump to paint that whole side of it with a certain thing, right? Which means that's how Bitcoiners can enter this conversation in contrast now without having to get too on board Trump, right? So now we can actually make the contrast between Bitcoin and fiat, which is where things are headed in 2024. Bitcoin is going to be in the middle of, because everything you see breaking is actually fiat propagation capacity. And in all the pillars that holds up this fiat industrial complex, like the media, like the legal system, those are the very things that are becoming Moscow time jokes. And so it's the perfect contrast for Bitcoin. It's the perfect psychological setup for the separation of money and state. We're winning. We're winning. All right. Bit of a short one today because of the stale coffee and the stale news. But that's okay, right? Yesterday's news was interesting enough for another day of Moscow time. Complete show, complete morning about Moscow time. All right, team. Thanks for coming. Early Merry Christmas, Robert says. Indeed. Early Merry Christmas to you too. We're not going to do a show Saturday morning, I think, or Sunday or Monday. But I will publish it probably tomorrow. Tomorrow's Friday. So I'll publish the Christmas schedule tomorrow. I did the math. I think I'm doing, anyway, we'll see. We'll see what happens. All right. Peace, everyone.